Hi everyone, it's Coach Fred here, and today I'm going to be talking about the basics of literal equations. So this is like part one of a couple videos on literal equations. Basically, a literal equation is just an equation of two or more, yes, more variables. And instead of solving for a numerical answer like x equals 4, we're solving for one of the variables in terms of another. And that can get tricky because we tend to not like when there's multiple variables in equations. But let me show you what I mean. We're going to observe the similarities of solving a two-step linear equation with solving for a variable in a literal equation. I'm going to do them side by side to make this easy. So here we have a very basic two-step literal equation where we're asked to solve for a. So we would solve the equation by doing the backwards order of operations, right? So we'd add the 13 to both sides. And again, we're trying to isolate a, and so we get 2a equals 100. We want to undo the multiplication. 2 is being multiplied to the a, so we would divide by 2 on both sides, getting a equals 50. And remember, what that means is 50, if I plug it in for a, if I substitute it in for a, it's going to make the math sentence true. It's going to make the equation a true statement. That's not what we're doing with literal equations, though we are solving for something. So in this case, we're solving for a. Right? We've got 2a minus b equals c. I want you to notice the structure is exactly the same as that two-step linear equation. All right, so we're solving for a, so we have to isolate a. So the first thing we're going to do is add b to both sides, just like we added 13 to both sides. That's going to leave me with 2a equals c plus b. We added 87 plus 13. They were like terms. C and B are not like terms, so we can't add them. So we just leave it as C plus B. Then we divided by 2, so we're going to go ahead and divide by 2. And so our answer is A equals C plus B over 2. So we've solved for A in terms of C and B. And that's basically what you do with a literal equation. So if you ever get stuck, I always say, what would you do with a real number? All right, let's take this up a notch. Let's look at equations that are like proportions. So we can have literal equations that look like proportions. And you've learned how to solve a proportion multitude of ways. I like to solve a proportion by clearing fractions. Some teachers have you cross multiply. So I'm going to clear the fractions. So I'm going to multiply both sides by the lowest common denominator. In this case, the lowest common denominator is 6. All right, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 6. So I can simplify. 3 goes into 6. 2 times, remember that 6 is kind of over 1. And then I'm going to multiply 2 to 5k minus 2, giving me 10k minus 4, making sure I distribute it through. Equals. The 6's simplify here to 1, and I'm left with k plus 1. I solve for k, so I'm actually going to bring the k over. I always bring the smaller to the larger. That's me. And I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So that gives me 9k equals 5. And then I'm going to divide by 9. Okay. I can do the same thing when I'm solving a literal proportion. So this says solve for b. Okay, now I'm going to do this just to help a little bit. I'm going to isolate, let's make this a little smaller. I'm going to isolate the b. So that means I need to get b alone. So that 2 is in the way. I have an equation with fractions, so I need to clear the fractions. Remember, a is like it's over 1, so I'm going to multiply both sides by the lowest common denominator, which is 2. All right, so on the left side, that's going to give me 2a, and on the right side, the 2's will simplify, and I'll have little a plus b. These are different a's. I have a large a and a little a. Want to isolate b, so a is being added to it, so I'm going to subtract a on both sides, leaving me with 2a minus a equals b. And there's my literal equation. I've solved for b in terms of capital A and lowercase a. All right, so that's the basics of solving a literal equation. This was video number 1, and I highly encourage you to look at the harder, the medium, and the spicy versions, okay? Have a great day.